hanging out at the coffee house, and they said we're going to close this down unless they can do something more productive with it. So I said, well, I know a lot of musicians. Well, why don't we, you know, have like a music coffee house? And so that's basically how it started. That was in '73.
Oh, it had been a coffee house, but not a music coffee.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was just a kind of like a hangout. And now I actually met people down there who actually did bring instruments down there on occasion, and that's how I met quite a few people actually. But it wasn't like a regularly scheduled music or anything like that. So we started in '73 to do something unheard of. We actually had a Friday and Saturday night coffee house. Didn't charge admission, and just I just invited a lot of people that I knew.
And relied on donations to this.
Yeah, it was definitely pass the hat.
Yeah.
You know, pass the hat.
But the church thought this was more suitable.
Yeah, exactly, and eventually the seminary students sort of dropped out of the picture, and then it was just me and, you know, some of my friends, and then we just and that was a great musical introduction. So many people I know who are playing music professionally now, you know, used to come down to the coffee house, and we all sort of spent a lot of nights after the performance sitting around the coffee house just jamming until like all hours of the morning. Thank gosh it was on the weekend, you know, because we would just really hang out until all hours and just play music, and that was like my introduction to really playing in a group with like a lot of people. It's a lot of fun. Yeah.
So we fast forward to 1975. Tell us a little bit about your role in that first New Jersey Folk Festival.
Well, as you know, you don't know, I mean, you may not remember, but you approached me. I was in the Douglas post office, and you came up to me, and you know, you knew I did the Mine Street Coffee House, so you came up and actually offered to buy me a cup of coffee, and I never had anybody offer to buy me a cup of coffee back then. So you went, and then you posed the idea of having this folk festival, this idea of yours, and you wanted to know if I would be, you know, lining up a couple of musicians. And, you know, I was familiar with the Middletown Folk Festival. I had been to the Fox Hollow Folk Festival. So I thought it was more than having a few strolling musicians. So I had my own ideas about how I really wanted to approach that. And I probably shanghaied you out of some dollars that you really hadn't planned to have for musicians. But that's how I got involved in the Folk Festival, really was to try to you know, do like a mini, what I thought was at the time, you know, Middletown Folk Festival. And Ed McDermott, you know, that was the first person that popped into my head, like you talking about having a folk festival. Oh, I can have a place for Mac to play, you know. So he was like, quote unquote, my headliner for that festival, and you know, a variety of other people that I had run into on the other festival circuit, you know. And there were a number of people, like Jim Albertson had. You know, I chatted him up a couple of times, and I always had this gumption after running the coffee house for 2 years that I could ask people to play. You know, I could say what I was going to pay, and if they said no, all right. You know, I just go on to the next person, and you know, what's the worst that could happen? You know, they say no. You know, the best thing that could happen is they said yes. Everybody I asked to play at the festival jumped at the chance, so I didn't have any problems recruiting people, and we had some really great performers. We had Ola Bell Reed come up from Maryland, and you know, it was really a lot of fun.
And we had a good turnout.
We had a fabulous turnout. We were like, who knows? We'd get 10,000 people to come out to this festival.
A couple years later, you founded McDermott's Handy. Tell us how that came about.
Well, you know, Ed McDermott played at the Folk Festival in '75 and '76, and at the time we actually had evening concerts. And in 1977, he died on New Year's Day. And I was out of college by then. I wasn't running the festival, but that year, we decided at the evening concert at the festival, we decided we were going to pay a tribute to Ed McDermott. And so I called a bunch of people who had learned a lot of music from him, and I said, you know, let's get together and let's have this tribute. We had like a whole big slideshow. We had all the musicians on stage, and it was really great. And we called ourselves McDermott's Handy. There were 7 musicians. And Gordon Bach, a folk singer, had a track on one of his records called McDermott's Handy, and they were 2 tunes that he learned from Ed McDermott. So that's where I got the title. And apparently a handy is a set of tunes you name after somebody in their honor.
Oh, okay.
So that's how it got started. It was really these 7 musicians in this just ad hoc tribute concert. And then I just sort of kept it going. I just kept having different musicians I played with. And eventually it came down to my husband and myself.
Yeah.
So I've been doing this ever since he passed away. And, you know, I went from playing like a lot of country music, a lot of American folk music and other stuff until, you know, eventually that's all I was doing was really the Irish music.
And then time goes by and you gradually take up the harp. And you're involved with this Harper's Escape Weekend. Maybe you could explain what that is.
Well, I've been playing the harp. Like I said, I came home one night and there was this harp sitting in the middle of my living room. My husband had bought me a small neo-Irish harp, and I taught myself how to play. And eventually, there weren't too many harp players back in that day. It was very hard to find really decent harps, actually, in 1984. So eventually, after I'd been playing for a number of years, I met some other people who